So the next section is about clarifying. Now, I've already mentioned clarifying a couple of times today. I think we've touched on it a number of times as well in other sessions, but what is clarifying and why do we use it in interpreting? So I'm going to ask Yamin, what do you think? What is clarifying and why is it necessary in interpreting?
Clarifying.
I can't hear anything you're saying at the moment. I don't know if your microphone's gone.
Is like clearing something, making something clear. If it's
Clear,
not
right?
clear.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So you're making something clearer. So why do you think that's necessary as a part of interpreting, do you think, Yamin?
Because this message or this thing which you're trying to interpret, maybe is something's really important for someone's life, or like,
Yep.
or is it gonna be like cause of some decision, and it's gonna be based on this clarifying.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really important, I think, for an interpreter, because your role is to be able to interpret a message accurately, then you can only really do that if you understand the message in the first place. And sometimes, for a number of different reasons, that might not actually be the case. It might be that a doctor, for example, is using a phrase or some terminology that you've just never come across before. The medical science is a wide science. There are lots and lots of different things. There are certain conditions that are fairly rare, and naturally you just won't have had a chance to hear them all or to learn them all. So that might happen, and you might need to clarify. Sometimes as well, when someone says something, even if you're in a conversation English to English, sometimes someone will say something and I won't always understand what they mean. So I have to just double check with them and to clarify their meaning. And that must be even more difficult when you're trying to think in two languages, because it really depends on how clear the person is in the first place and what your understanding is and the context of that. So it can be quite easy to misunderstand what someone said. So clarifying, as we said, it's asking for more details in order to make something clearer or easier to understand. Now, when you actually clarify, there is a way to do it that is the correct way. And I think I have mentioned it a few times as we've gone through the training. So without putting anyone in particular on the spot, can anyone remember, if you're going to clarify something, how would you do that? How would you announce that you are clarifying so that people don't think you're just interpreting?
Ask him someone that, or ask him them if they understand or understood.
So that would be if you are clarifying that someone understood something, then you might just ask them, did you understand that? So yeah, that's one way of doing it. But I mean, if you yourself as the interpreter need to clarify something, so if you need to ask a question back to the doctor so you can understand even before you've interpreted, what's the correct way to do that?
Isn't it not what we talk about, talking in the first person and the third person?
It is.
So yes. When we are interpreting, obviously we're using the first person, and then if we use third person, would be like the interpreter would like to clarify something.
That's absolutely right, Kasia. Yeah. So if you imagine an interpreting session and you're in it, you're using the first person all the time to interpret a message from someone else. So if a doctor says something and you use the first person saying, can you explain what you meant by that, please? They might be confused as to whether you're interpreting something that's being said or whether you are asking the question. So to make it really clear and really obvious, then actually if you're asking a question, you talk about yourself in the third person. So you're doing the interpreting and you're using the first person all the time for them. So it's a kind of backwards to what you do normally. So first person when you're relaying a message from someone else, third person when it's you. So you'd use a very simple phrase such as, Mrs. B, the interpreter, so talking about yourself, needs to clarify something with the doctor. And to the professional, you'd then say, doctor, whatever their name is, this is the interpreter asking for clarification of the term of whatever it was, or clarification of what you just said. So again, you're still keeping both parties involved. You're still letting both parties know exactly what's happened so that they're not thinking, hang on a second, what's happening here? Particularly if you imagine the doctor can only understand English and you're having a conversation in, I don't know, Russian, for example, then you might just be clarifying it, but as far as they know, they've got no idea what you're talking about, and all they can see is a bit of a back and forth. So they might query that. So if you've let them know beforehand that, doctor, I'm just about the interpreter just needs to clarify something with the patient, and then do it, then it just explains to them exactly what's happening, and it keeps everyone informed. And that's one of the methods that you can use as an interpreter to facilitate a good interpreting session and clear communications.